Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the topic of resilience, sustainability for UK manufacturing. I think it's fair to say the next couple of decades are going to be certainly very, very interesting for the future of manufacturing. I'm very pleased to be able to welcome a couple of old friends of mine, but we've got Henry Anson, who is the managing director of the manufacturer, and James Devonshire, who is part of the editorial team at the manufacturer as well. So between the three of us, I'm hoping you're going to enjoy this conversation as we reflect and look forward to what promises to be an exciting time. And I think maybe just to begin with, it's probably worthwhile reflecting on just how much has happened. If we go back to the autumn statement, that was the first time for many, many years that we heard mention of an industry strategy. Um, we also saw some significant investment allowances and changes to help encourage investment. And I think it's fair to say that there's a groundswell of positivity that's certainly come out from some of the economic factors, and looking forward to the order books for 2024. We are in a lot better position than probably we were expecting. And I might just hand over to Henry, maybe just to share his reflections on what happened in the last quarter of last year.
Thank you, and a happy new year to everybody. It's fascinating because we've had some very, very contradictory, in my view, sort of stats coming out from very respected organisations. So the PMI in November shot up to the highest level it had for 6 or 7 months. And then, my anticipation was post the autumn mini budget was that it would increase again in December, but actually it fell back in December, indicating, a lack of optimism for this year, 24. But then we had the Make UK PwC report that was launched at the beginning of this week. And I asked James to go into a little bit more detail about that in a second. But that actually painted a much rosier picture, certainly on a surface level, and particularly compared to our European counterparts with reference to manufacturing. So slightly, as I said, contradictory sort of stats coming out from these respected organisations. Just on an anecdotal level, obviously James and I speak to senior manufacturers on a very regular basis, and I think the underlying feel is that there's a lot more positivity around 24 prospects than there was around 23. This time last year, I think people were anticipating a really, really tough year. And I'm not in any way saying that 23 wasn't tough, but I don't think it was quite the car crash that it potentially could have been, or potentially was being predicted. But so as I said, I think our opinion here at the manufacturer is that 24 will be a much better year for manufacturing. But obviously, you've got to caveat it with the sort of geopolitical turmoil that's going on, which could flare up flare up. It already is flared up, but could it expand and get worse? I mean, I think there's a very genuine risk of a Taiwan crisis happening in the next 12, 24 months, which would obviously derail any optimism. But James, sorry, over to you around the Make UK and PwC report. What did you make of it?
Yeah, so as you said, Henry, on the face of things, definitely positive. So the Make UK PwC report that was released at the beginning of this week, the kind of headline finding, I guess, is that Britain's manufacturers are viewing the UK as a more competitive place to locate their activities compared to 12 months ago, with an increasing number actually believing they're moving ahead of their European rivals. Now, slight caveat there is that the majority remain wary of the threat to their competitiveness posed by the likes of US, India and China. But nevertheless, many are seeing the UK as definitely a more competitive place to do business. And that's compared to 12 months ago. So yeah, over the last 12 months, things have definitely improved, certainly in manufacturers' eyes. Opportunities coming from new products, digital technologies, and expansion into new markets. But we've still got the ongoing headache of skills, increasing energy and employment costs, hamstringing things. So yeah, on the surface of things, positive, definitely positive. but there's still a few niggling issues which are continuing to hinder the sector, definitely.
No, thanks, James. I think it's fair to say, and Henry mentioned it before, we've still got some fairly strong headwinds with the geopolitical situation. I was encouraged reading the Make UK report, which talked about the willingness of manufacturers to invest, which I think is very important, and we can maybe touch on that. But also the fact that what's going on in the Middle East, that's now having an impact again on supply chains because of the delays in shipping. I think it's too soon to figure out just exactly what the impact is going to be, but we almost seem to be going back 2 years ago in a way to the impact on supply chains. And Henry, I don't know if you've got any thoughts at all to share, because this gets to the heart of how resilient are our manufacturers? What lessons have they learned from the pandemic and the issues around supply chain then?
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly one of the issues that's been keeping manufacturers awake in the last 2 or 3 years has been their supply chain resilience and integrity. So I've been hearing a lot about reshoring and nearshoring in the last 2 or 3 years, but haven't seen a great deal of it actually happening. But I do think that maybe 24 will be the year when we do start to see a lot more positive strides in that direction. But clearly, Matt, as you alluded to, there's supply chain integrity resilience is still a major issue, and the geopolitical circumstances are making it even more in focus.
Mm. No,
Yeah,
no, thank you, Henry. Sorry, James, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to that. Obviously, you touched on Henry touched on earlier about the potential for issues arising out of Taiwan, maybe in the next 12 months. But also, we've got the ongoing issue right now in the Red Sea with shipping. We've got enormous shipping costs at the moment as a result, with containers being attacked and all that kind of stuff. And that's despite there now being U.S. Navy presence in the region. So yeah, I mean, Taiwan potential issues and Red Sea shipping crisis as it's still going on. I mean, that's been a few weeks now. So yeah, I can't see it's definitely hindering things for manufacturers in terms of supply chain.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, putting aside that slightly, I guess, negative news, looking with a bit of positivity, obviously there were some things that the government announced this year, sorry, at the end of 23 around investment allowances and so on to encourage investment. Where do you think manufacturers are likely to be focusing that type of investment? When I talk to some of our customers, and they've got various aging pieces of kit, some new, some very very old. Some of it is rather difficult to try and replace, but just talking to people, what are you picking up in terms of sentiment? Is this going to really make a big difference for the manufacturers, Henry?
James, I'll start. Yes, so I think it will make a difference, and absolutely right. And it's the opportunity to replace that sort of, that legacy equipment and things. And I think it should be part and is part of this whole sort of move to a more digitalized future. So, again, what we heard last year was a lot of people's investment activities were not iced totally, but slowed down. And I'm hoping and anticipating that sort of logjam will break this year as people, with the encouragement from government, but also with a slightly more optimistic sort of outlook for manufacturing. I think that this could be 24 could be a year where manufacturers really do start reinvesting in their plant, making it more productive, more digitalized, and just generally using this as an opportunity, as I say, to move the goalposts forward.
James, any
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah, absolutely. So obviously, permanent full expensing. That's something that Make UK and its members have been calling for a long time. So it was definitely encouraging to see that form part of the Chancellor's autumn statement at the end of last year. If you'll recall, Matt, you and I did a webinar the end of last year with Fahim Khan, who's senior economist at Make UK. And one of the things he said in that webinar was that manufacturing is one of the most investment intensive sectors, with the majority of companies having long term cycles of 5 to 7 years. So we might not be seeing the investments yet, but I think they're in the pipeline, certainly. And with things like permanent full expensing, it can only encourage companies to invest. And interesting to see how manufacturers do react once new budgets are agreed this year. Certainly. I actually posted a story today, funnily enough, on the manufacturer about a foundry which has just invested £2 million, Alucast Limited, and they've just commissioned 6 new CNC machines, low pressure machines, and boosted a range of their new core capabilities. So, yeah, companies are investing. It's also something that obviously we uncovered in the last HSO agility assessment. 66% of manufacturers said they're looking to invest over the next 12 months, whether that's in people, products, premises, or processes. Definitely positive sentiment there.
It does feel for the first time since I've been in situ that the government are now actually taking manufacturing seriously in this country and actually realizing the importance the sector plays to the country's economy. So as James has been saying, as you've been saying, Matt, I think cautious optimism is the mantra for the year at the moment.
And do you think that would extend to, I guess, some of the legacy of manufacturing and the industrial space? I'm thinking particularly like of the steel industry, which is, we've only got two smelters really at the moment, and they're both on old technology, and obviously to get them onto new technologies is a significant investment. Do you think the government would play a role in keeping that sort of part of our industry alive here in the UK?
I do. I genuinely hope the government realise, and I think they do, that the strategic importance of keeping industries like that alive in this country. The nuclear sector is a classic where we lost the skills that we needed or we had, and you can't regain them. So once we've lost that capability, we'll never get it back. And I genuinely think government now do realise that there's a strategic national imperative to keep industries like steel alive, despite the fact they might well need to be subsidised in that process of becoming more modern and more carbon friendly.
Which nicely leads me on, I guess, to talk about the topic of sustainability and net zero, and obviously things such as we were just talking about with the steel sector there, but moving forwards, we're seeing again some slightly mixed messages coming from the government in terms of the impetus. What's your take in terms of what you're hearing from manufacturers that you talk to, Henry?
Yeah, so not only are we seeing, some slightly mixed messages from government about the need to decarbonise and a more sustainable future. What most manufacturers are realising is their consumers, their customers are actually demanding it as well. So not just through a more sustainable product with less carbon used in its manufacturing process, but actually, in the circular economy side of it. So, end of life, reuse, etc., etc. James, do you want to talk a bit more about COP28 and the sort of the main pronouncements that came out of that?
So we heard from Graham Hoare, who's the CEO of the MTC, earlier last month, that resilient green energy supply chains are a must if manufacturing is to meet its sustainability goals. And an underlying success factor here is having a skilled workforce who can use advanced technologies effectively. So a big link, as you mentioned a minute ago, between sustainability and organisations, now board level agenda item, and particularly with the workforce link. We hear from manufacturers that they're actually when they interview for somebody new for a job, they get the questions turned around on them, and they're getting people asking them, well, what are your sustainability credentials? So it's a key factor for encouraging and securing the talent that many manufacturers desperately need. And we saw some good initiatives actually to coincide with COP28. Siemens hosted 60 secondary school students from across Greater Manchester for a day of learning about sustainable futures. We had big companies like Wesleyan, Nestle, Linklaters, all delivering workshops and that kind of stuff. So that was good. Again, getting people involved in the sector, encouraging them and showing them that the manufacturing is doing its part to be sustainable and help us, the UK, meet the net zero target. So yeah, I think getting the workforce of tomorrow interested and actively considering sustainability and net zero is definitely a top agenda item for many.
Well, Henry, James, I'd like to thank you both very, very much. I think just before we conclude, I'll ask your thoughts as to what you think 2024 is likely to bring for our manufacturing businesses here in the UK. Henry, to you first.
Yeah, heavily caveated, particularly around the geopolitical thing. I think this will be a much better year for UK manufacturing than it has been the last 3 or 4 years. But let's face it, we've gone through the Brexit process, COVID, and then the geopolitical upheaval, Ukraine, Russia, the Gaza situation. So I'm hoping for a much calmer geopolitical year where our wonderful UK manufacturing sector can, take off from, take off from where it's been and start investing using the government initiatives and really drive forward. I think there's a terrific opportunity. We've had 3 or 4 very tricky years. I'm just hoping for a calm year.
Thank you, Henry. And James, the last word from yourself.
Yeah, basically to echo what Henry's just said, as long as we see geopolitical stability and solid supply chains and resilience and visibility and everything like that, then I think manufacturers are definitely going to be better off in 2024 than they have been for the last couple of years. We're definitely hearing more positive news when it comes to investments, and that's both in machinery and digital stuff. So digital technologies to improve their businesses, as well as investments in new products and expansion into new markets. So while we had the kind of slightly disappointing PMI result, I suppose, in December, business sentiment certainly from the stats and from what I hear from talking to manufacturers is positive, definitely, as 2024 unfolds.
Well, thank you both very much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and really appreciate your time.